Alright guys, at this point you should have already watched the lecture video that I had posted for Chapter 13 for Policing, the Use of Force chapter, and completed, hopefully at this point, the required writing assignment that I had you guys do that was mentioned in the last chapter. Real quick, we're going to do a quiz review and go over the questions, and then you guys can go ahead and take the quiz. Let me know if there's any questions as usual. If you have any problems with some of the questions, I know how the questions can sometimes be. But the first question we're going to look at, it asks, police officers are trained, it's true or false, police officers are trained to use only the level of force required by the situation. That of course would be true. The officers they can't use lethal force in a situation that doesn't warrant it, right? They have to use, based off the use of force continuum, what is appropriate for that. But it also means that if the officer needs to use their gun or lethal force, that they don't have to go through, verbal dialogue or verbal exchange with the person to try to get them to comply, or less lethal, they can go straight to lethal force. The next question, it says a range of options that involve lesser to greater amounts of officer force are known as a force list, a force range, a force continuum, or a force description. Just know, guys, that in law enforcement and policing, it's concerned with a use of force continuum, right? We don't call it a pyramid, we call it a continuum. That's a term you'll hear time and time again. I know it's in the chapter time and time again, but if you're asked that question, continuum is the correct word that you're looking for. Next we have, if gaining a suspect's compliance requires the use of strong directive language or minimal force by the police officer, it is likely that the suspect offered no resistance, slight resistance, high resistance, or violent or explosive resistance. The correct answer here would be slight resistance. Strong or directive language or minimal force, right? There's not a whole lot going on here. The officers just having to be more authoritative in their utilization of basically their presence to try to get someone to comply. So here we're obviously not at no resistance, because then no resistance wouldn't require any police effort. There's some resistance that the officer's getting here, and some compliance that's needed to be gained, but it's very minimal. So the correct answer would be slight. The behavior of problem police officers is best characterized as childish, often includes harassing other officers, is always characterized as criminal, or may result in a number of citizen complaints. Guys, remember, problem police officers, they're the bad apple in the bunch, right? They tend to give everybody a bad name. With that being said, though, they also tend to generate a lot of complaints. There's always, officers always that are under Internal Affairs or OPS, Office of Professional Standards. They're often very familiar with who their trouble officers are. So if you're looking at that, a problem police officer is going to have a lot of citizen complaints. People are going to be unhappy. There's going to be documentation of it, which is good for liability purposes. Is also good for people trying to fire somebody. Which of the following, or which of these actions, is not generally considered to be an option in the use of force continuum? Using a baton, threatening or using waterboarding techniques, using a gun, threatening or using chemicals or pepper spray. We talked about all the options that are in here, guys, except waterboarding. Waterboarding is not something that we do. It's something that is illegal to do, but it's has been done by the CIA. It's not something that law enforcement is going to do. They don't waterboard people to get them to comply or confess to something. So just know that that's the correct answer for that one. True or false, any use of force by police officers can be considered excessive force. I don't agree with this question, guys. It says any use of force. I would actually think that any sort of force or any opportunity would in fact be open or considered to be excessive. It just depends on the person. For the sake of this quiz, guys, though, the correct answer is false. So for that answer, any use of force by police officers can be considered excessive force. The correct answer for that would be false. When were less lethal weapons introduced into American law enforcement? Give several dates, guys. 2001, 1995, 1987, and 1974. The correct answer for that is 1987. When individuals commit suicide by cop, they A. have already determined that they want it in their lives. B, they engage in behavior that provokes officers to use deadly force. C, they engage in behavior that provokes officers to use deadly force. Or D, they're all correct. In this situation, guys, all of the correct answers, all the answers that are listed are in fact correct for that answer. Choosing D or whichever one in your option choices, all of the above, is in fact the correct one. The application of an amount and or frequency of force greater than what is required to compel compliance is known as culpable force, excessive force, unreasonable force, or maximal force. The book chapter is use of force, guys. Use of force focuses on excessive force, which is how people get complaints. Complaints are generated through internal affairs, or OPS. So for this, if you're knowing that somebody's using more force than what's required of them at that time in that specific situation, just know that it is in fact referenced as being excessive. The use of physical restraint by a police officer when dealing with a member of the public is called A, display of force, B, act of force, C, demonstration of force, or D, use of force. The use of physical restraint by a police officer when dealing with a member of the public is called a use of force, guys. The chapter is use of force, talking about what options are available to law enforcement. So when you're looking at that, a physical restraint that's occurring by the officer is in fact a form of use of force. So the correct answer for that is, of course, use of force. Like I said, guys, this chapter is one of the it's fairly easy, more so than some of the other ones that you guys have had where they try to trick you up. If you have any questions with it, please reach out to me. Please let me know. If there's an issue with your quiz selection, or you're unhappy with something that you see on there that you feel like you've been counted as wrong but it's actually right, email me, guys. Let me know this stuff, because I won't know. I won't go in and check it, each individual question, unless you bring it to my attention. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Other than that, hopefully I'll see you guys next week. Thank you.